Start counting now. I am going to name 9 foods. Beside each one, I am going to name the exact signal your body gives when it refuses that food. Not an opinion about the food, not a warning about it. The signal. The precise sensation, arriving at the precise moment it arrives, that you have spent years filing under something else entirely. Tiredness, age, a bad night, too much on your plate. And I already know your number is higher than you are willing to admit. You are going to want to argue with me in the first minute. That is fine. Argue. Fold your arms. Tell yourself that this is one more list telling you what not to eat, and that you have already heard every version of it, and that you are not doing this again. Hold that position for as long as it holds. It will not hold past the second one. Because somewhere around the second food, something is going to land too accurately. Not the food itself, the signal attached to it. The specific 20 minutes, the specific weight behind the eyes, the specific flatness that arrives so reliably you stopped noticing it was a response at all. And in that moment you will stop arguing with me and start doing something much more uncomfortable, which is checking. That is the whole design of this transmission, not persuasion, verification. The Arcturian Council does not send lists. What is being opened here is closer to an audit. 9 sealed items, each one opened in front of you, each one tested not against a rule but against your own body memory, and marked accepted or rejected by the only instrument qualified to mark it, which is the body currently sitting in that chair reading its own history back to you. You keep the tally. 9 items. You will know your number before this transmission ends, and you are not going to like how fast it climbs. Understand what you are actually being asked to count. You are not counting failures. You are not counting the things you have not managed to give up, or the mornings you promised yourself something and by evening had quietly renegotiated it. This is not that ledger. That ledger has been open long enough. You are counting detections. Instances where your body sent a clear, specific, timed message about a substance and you received it and overruled it. Because you were busy. Because it was in front of you. Because everyone else was eating it. Because the message arrived without words and you have been trained your entire life to only trust the messages that arrive with words. That body has been signaling faithfully every single time. Without resentment, without escalation. It never stopped sending. So here is the confrontation, and I want it stated plainly before we open the first item. You are not about to discover that you have been eating wrong. You are about to discover how long you have been receiving accurately. 9 items. Start your count. There is a reason this audit is being opened now, in this window, rather than at any other point in your life. And the reason is not dietary. Something in your system has changed its threshold. Not your willpower, not your discipline, which has never been the missing variable regardless of how many times you have been told it was. Your threshold. The frequency floor a substance has to clear before your cells can actually use it for regeneration, rather than merely process it and move it through. That floor has been rising, quietly, for months. Possibly longer. And a rising floor does not announce itself as a spiritual event. It announces itself as things you used to enjoy turning strange. This is what the Arcturian Council watches for in starseed development. And this is why a transmission is issued at this point rather than earlier. Not when the discomfort begins. When the discrimination begins. There is a difference between a body that feels bad and a body that has started sorting. A body that feels bad is enduring. A body that has started sorting is measuring, item by item, against a standard it did not have access to before. Yours has started sorting. That is what the last stretch of months has actually been. And here's where it becomes genuinely disorienting. Because a sorting system that is still calibrating does not behave the way you expect a verdict to behave. You already know this. You have lived it and dismissed it. There was a week when something you ate closed you down completely. Not mildly, You felt it move through you like weather, hours of it, and you decided with total conviction that you were finished with that one permanently. And then 11 days later, you had the same thing and felt almost nothing. No heaviness, no fog. A flat neutral where the alarm had been. And in that moment, you concluded the obvious thing, which is that your body cannot be trusted. That you had imagined the first reaction, that you were being dramatic or suggestible, or that the whole idea of the body knowing things is convenient nonsense that dissolves the moment you test it twice. Hold that contradiction. Do not resolve it yet. It is not evidence against your system. It is the single most important piece of information about what your system is currently doing. And it will not make sense until the mechanism is laid out much later in this transmission. For now, simply note that you have been treating inconsistency as unreliability. Almost everyone does. The window itself is the other reason for the timing. Your electromagnetic field is running a reorganization phase, and during reorganization, the field temporarily loses its tolerance for anything that costs more energy to integrate than it delivers. This is not moral. Food does not have virtue. Food has coherence, or it does not. And during a phase like this one, your system stops being able to afford the difference. Which is why the reactions have been sharpening rather than softening as you have gotten healthier. That has confused you too. You did the work. You cleaned things up. You would expect a stronger system to handle more, not less. A stronger receiver does not receive less. It receives more precisely. What you have been calling increased sensitivity is increased resolution. So the audit that is about to open is not measuring how compromised you have become. It is measuring how much of the signal is now getting through, in a body that has been transmitting the same information for years at a volume you could not yet hear. 9 items, every one of them already tested by you without your permission many times. The first signal is the delayed wait, and it belongs to 2 of the 9. You eat, and for about 20 minutes nothing happens. That gap is the reason you have never connected it. Then the wait arrives, and it does not feel like fullness. Fullness is satisfying. This is a downward drag behind the sternum, a sense of the body slowing down to handle something rather than being fed by it, and it can last hours. Item 1 is processed packaged food, anything that arrived in a sealed wrapper with a shelf life longer than your patience. Item 2 is industrially raised meat, same delayed wait, often heavier, often accompanied by a strange emotional flatness you have never once linked to a meal. Mark them or leave them. Your body already knows which. The second signal is the fog, and it also belongs to 2, not tiredness, fog. The specific sensation of your thoughts moving through a slightly thicker medium than usual, where you reread the same line twice and it does not land, where the word you want stays just out of reach. It arrives later than the wait, sometimes the next morning. Note 3 is bread and gluten grains. Item 4 is dairy. Both of these have been in your life since childhood, which is exactly why the fog reads as normal cognition to you. You have very little uncontaminated data on what your own clarity feels like. Mark them. The third signal is the thirst that water does not answer, and this one belongs to 3. You drink. You are still thirsty. Or you drink and the water passes through you without ever seeming to arrive anywhere, as though it entered and left without being received. Item 5 is diet drinks and artificial sweeteners. Item 6 is refined sugar. Item 7 is unstructured tap water itself, the water that has traveled through pipes and pressure and chemical treatment and arrives carrying almost no coherent charge. That last one usually lands hardest, because you have been counting it as the solution rather than as one of the 9. Mark them. The fourth signal is the racing that used to be energy, and it belongs to the final 2. Item 8 is caffeine at the dose you have always taken. Notice that phrasing, not caffeine. Caffeine at your old dose. The amount that once gave you a clean lift and now gives you a jittery, hollow acceleration with an edge of anxiety underneath it, followed by a drop that costs more than the lift delivered. Item 9 is alcohol. The one where the recovery time quietly doubled and you told yourself it was your age. The evening still works, the next day no longer does. Mark them. That is 9. Whatever your number is, hold it. Do not adjust it to something more respectable. Now hear the actual finding, because the number means nothing until it is read correctly. These are not 4 separate problems. They are 4 expressions of one event: delayed wait, fog, unanswerable thirst, hollow acceleration. Every one of them is your body reporting the same thing in 4 dialects, which is that the substance in question arrived carrying less usable light than the work required to process it. Industrially produced food undergoes a measurable collapse in biophoton emission, the faint, coherent light living tissue holds and releases. Your cells do not primarily read calories, they read coherence. And what you have been calling a reaction is not damage, it is a reading. Which means your tally is not a scorecard of how badly you are doing. Your tally is a measurement of instrument sensitivity. A person with a number of 1 is not more evolved than a person with a number of 7. They are a less precise reader. The high number is the sharper instrument. If your number crossed 5, what you are actually holding is evidence that your detection system came fully online while you were busy being ashamed of it. 777. If that number is present in your field right now, in this exact moment of recognition, it is marking the end of an ancestral cycle. Divine completion. Speak it once, quietly, and let it seal what you have just recognized. The lineage that taught you to override your own body's reporting ends its transmission with you. You do not have to pass it forward. That inheritance closes here. And hear this clearly, because it matters more than the tally. You do not need to ban a single one of these 9, not one. This is not a purity ranking, and there is no spiritual advancement waiting at the bottom of a shorter list. Restriction is not the mechanism. Reception is. Whatever guilt just moved through you as you counted, cut it now. It is not yours. It does not belong to this reading, and it will actively distort your next measurement. Something like this cannot be held from a single hearing. Recognition arrives all at once. Integration does not. A signal this specific has to be written down, tracked across days, watched as it shifts, where it dissolves back into the noise within a week, and you return to overruling it without noticing you resumed. And there is one more layer beneath the tally, which is the question of what is actually doing the marking. Not your preferences, not your stomach. Something considerably older, running an upgrade you did not consent to and cannot pause. Close your eyes if they are not already closed, and let your breath drop lower than your chest. That is the only instruction you need to begin. Let your hands rest wherever they are, palms open, and stop directing anything. You are not performing a practice here. You are making yourself readable. Bring your attention to the base of your spine. Feel the weight of your body pressing down into whatever is holding it. Let that weight increase slightly. Let yourself be heavier than you usually allow yourself to be. If you have black tourmaline near you, hold it now, and let the downward pull sharpen until you feel genuinely anchored rather than floating above your own body the way you have been for most of today. Now move upward, slowly, to the space just below your ribs. This is where the audit lives, not the stomach, the field around it. A soft golden density about the width of your palm, sitting slightly forward of the body, holding the record of every meal you have ever overruled. Do not clear it. Do not push at it. Just find it. Notice that it is already lit. Dimly, unevenly, but lit. It has been running the whole time. Breathe into that space and let the gold widen, not brighter, wider. Let it expand until it reaches the front of your ribs and the small of your back at the same time, so that you are held in it rather than looking at it. Now the council begins the pass. You will feel it as a slow horizontal movement, starting at the crown, descending. It is not scanning for damage. It is reading the record. Every item you marked a moment ago is written into this field with a date and a time and the exact sensation attached. And all of it is being read now without a single judgment applied to any of it. Let it descend past your throat, past your heart where it slows, because this is the gateway and the reading always slows here. Past the solar plexus, where the gold you just widened meets it, and into the lower body, down through the legs, out. Something is being lifted as it passes, not the foods, the overrule. The habit of receiving a clear signal and deciding against it. That reflex is being lifted out of your field now, and you may feel it leave as a slight loosening across the front of the body, as though a held position has been set down. Let it go. Now, in the space it left, something is being written in. A single line of code, entering at the solar plexus, moving into the cellular architecture. Not an instruction about food, an instruction about listening. Your 12-strand template is receiving a threshold adjustment, and the adjustment is this. From this point forward, the signal reaches conscious awareness at the moment it is generated rather than hours later, after the damage of the override is already done. Feel that settle. 520 right here, at the point where the code lands. This number is moving through your field. Soul-level love. A karmic loop closing. Say it once, out loud if you can, and let it seal the shift into the body rather than leaving it in the mind. What closes here is the loop where you needed proof from outside yourself before you would believe what your body had already told you. Stay in it. The gold below your ribs is no longer dim. Feel the difference. It is holding a steady, even light now, and it is warmer than it was. And if you sit with it another moment, you may notice it is faintly pulsing, at a rate that has nothing to do with your heartbeat. That pulse is the reading system coming fully online. Let your breath stay low. Let the light stay wide. Do not try to hold it in place. It knows where it belongs. And now, without opening your eyes, bring back the number you counted. Notice that it feels different than it did 4 minutes ago. The same number, not the same weight. Whatever shame was fused to it has been separated out and taken by the pass. What is left is just a reading. Clean. Neutral. 9 items, some marked, some not. No verdict attached to any of them. Sit with how unfamiliar that is. Your body has been sending this information your entire life. The only thing that changed today is that the receiving end stopped arguing. Feel the gold hold steady, and somewhere underneath it, in a layer you have not touched yet, the thing that decides what gets marked and what gets released is still running, and it is not what you think it is. The recognition you just had opens a door, and the door does not stay open on its own. What most people run into within a week is not relapse, it is an empty plate. A clear list of what the field is flagging and nothing standing in its place. The Arcturian Lightbody diet was written for exactly that gap. It holds a 7-day frequency reset guide, chakra color food pairings, structured water preparation, and a rejection log worksheet so you can track which of the 9 drop away permanently and which were only temporary. It turns a high tally into a menu instead of a restriction. The link is in the description and pinned in the comments, and every copy helps keep these transmissions coming. Now, the mechanism. You have been assuming that your body is testing the food. It is not. That assumption is the reason the whole system has looked unreliable to you for years. And once it corrects, everything you have experienced reorganizes into something coherent. Your body is not testing the food. It is testing the relationship between the food and the state of your field at the moment the food arrives. 2 variables, not 1. You have only ever been watching one of them. The food is relatively fixed. Its coherence, its light-carrying capacity, the biophoton density it holds or fails to hold, that stays roughly constant from 1 week to the next. But the other variable, the one you have never accounted for, moves constantly. Your field capacity, the available surplus in your system at the hour of intake. And the reading you feel in your body is not a measurement of the food. It is a measurement of the gap between the two. Which means the same substance produces different readings on different days without either reading being wrong. Here is where it becomes physical, and I want you to have something concrete to hold, because a mechanism you cannot locate in your own body is just a story. The instrument taking the reading is your vagus nerve. It runs from the base of your skull down through the throat, past the heart, into the entire digestive architecture. It is the longest continuous line of communication in your body, and it carries information in both directions, though the traffic is overwhelmingly upward. Most of what travels that line is your gut reporting to your brain, not the other way around. This is the gut-brain axis, and it is not a metaphor about intuition. It is a physical cable carrying continuous data about everything that enters you. The quality of that cable's signal is called vagal tone. It is measurable. It rises and falls through the day, and it drops within minutes of refined sugar and artificial sweetener intake, measurably, reliably, in a way that has nothing to do with belief. Now hold both facts at once. The vagus nerve is the instrument that takes the reading, and certain substances lower the sensitivity of that instrument almost immediately upon arrival. Sit with what that means, because it is the whole thing. On a day when your vagal tone is high, you slept, your nervous system settled, your field is carrying surplus, the instrument is sharp. A substance arrives that does not meet your threshold, and the reading comes back loud. You feel the weight at 20 minutes. You feel the fog the next morning. The system reports clearly because the system is operating clearly. On a day when your tone is already suppressed, you are depleted, you have been running on adrenaline, you already ate 2 other things from your list of 9, that same substance arrives and produces almost nothing. Not because it changed, because the instrument measuring it was already dulled before it arrived. This is the answer to the thing that has been bothering you since the beginning of this transmission. The food that closed you down completely 1 week and read as neutral 11 days later did not become safe. Your reading of it became quiet, because on the second occasion your detection capacity was lower, or your field surplus was higher, or the meal before it had already flattened the line. The silence was not permission, it was a measurement taken with an instrument that was not fully awake. And the reverse is also true, and this is the part that matters more. The weeks where everything suddenly seems to bother you, where foods you handled without incident for 20 years start producing loud, unmistakable signals, are not weeks where your body became fragile. They are weeks where the instrument came all the way up. High vagal tone, wide field capacity, clean line. Every reading loud because every reading is finally accurate. You have been experiencing your sharpest weeks as your worst weeks. You have been reading precision as deterioration. So the inconsistency you have been holding as evidence against yourself is the single clearest proof that the system is live. A fixed list would mean a dead instrument. A list that shifts from week to week means the reading is being taken fresh every single time, against your actual current state, rather than being recalled from a stored rule. Your rejection list is not unreliable, it is unfinished. It is still being written, in real time. And it is being written by a body whose threshold is rising through this phase, which means the list itself will not settle until the phase completes. This is the moment it clicks, and this number is the light grid activation, the point where your individual reading connects to the collective resonance. Say it once. What just came online in you is not a private discovery, it is one node of a much larger grid registering the same shift, and your accuracy strengthens everyone else's. There is one more layer, and then the mechanism is complete. The gut-brain axis does not only report, it writes. The enteric network sends signals upward that shape what you experience as craving, not preference, not weakness, actual desire, generated below conscious awareness and delivered to you as though it originated in your own decision-making. This is why willpower has always been the wrong frame. You were never overriding a choice. you were negotiating with the transmission. And that transmission gets rewritten by what you consume on a cycle of days rather than years. Which is why the 9 items in the audit have felt so difficult to move. They were not habits. They were instructions, continuously reinforced by an internal signaling network that had been shaped by their presence. You were being asked to want them by a part of your body that had learned to want them. That network is now being reshaped because your cellular threshold is rising and the 12-strand template underneath your physical DNA is raising the frequency floor a substance must clear before regeneration can use it. When that floor rises, the enteric signaling reorganizes to match it. The cravings do not get resisted, they get rewritten. This is why the people who go through this phase describe the same strange thing. At some point they stopped wanting something they had wanted daily for decades, and the stopping did not feel like a victory because it did not feel like effort. It felt like the desire had simply been withdrawn. That is what is happening in you right now, mid-process, unfinished, which is exactly why the readings are inconsistent. You are not failing an audit, you are inside a rewrite. And this works alongside every other form of care you already have in place, at a different depth and in a different way from the support you have already used. It replaces nothing. It sits underneath. So the number you counted is not a verdict on today. It is a snapshot of a moving process, taken at 1 hour, with an instrument that is still calibrating upward. Next month, the number will be different, and that difference will be the proof, not the problem. You are not being asked to eliminate 9 things. You are being asked to stop overruling the instrument while it finishes coming online. You stayed through the audit. That is not a small thing. Most people close a transmission like this in the first 90 seconds, at the exact point where the counting starts to hurt. And the ones who stay through to the mechanism are almost always the ones whose systems were already too far along to keep pretending otherwise. Whatever your number was, you sat with it without collapsing into it. That is the actual work. 4 things to carry from here. First, before you eat anything for the next 5 days, pause for 1 breath and take a reading before the first bite rather than after. Not to decide, just to notice what the instrument says when nothing has been introduced yet. You have never had a baseline. Take one. Second, when a signal arrives, the weight, the fog, the thirst, the acceleration, say the word noted, silently, and nothing else. No apology, no correction, no plan. The overrule was lifted from your field during the transmission, and the fastest way to reinstall it is to attach guilt to the next reading. Third, structure your water. Let it sit uncovered for a stretch before drinking, in glass if you have it, in sunlight if you can. Of the 9, this is the one that changes fastest and costs nothing. Fourth, when a craving arrives this week, ask which one is speaking, the food or the network. You now know they are different. You do not have to answer correctly. Asking is the entire practice. Track the readings in writing as they come. Held in the head, they blur back into noise inside a week. On the page, the pattern shows itself within days. And now the identity, because the field reorganizes around what you are rather than what you avoid. Say this once and mean it as a statement of fact rather than an aspiration. My body is communicating clearly. It always was. I am the one who came online. Stay with that, not the list, not the tally, the sentence. Because everything shifts depending on which one you build around. A person organized around a restriction list spends the coming days managing loss, negotiating exceptions, and quietly measuring their worth against how few items they touched. A person organized around a functioning instrument spends the same days receiving information. And information does not require willpower to act on. It only requires that you stop arguing with it. Notice which one you were about to choose. One more thing, and it is the thing most people skip. Do not tighten. The instinct after a transmission like this is to clamp down, cut everything at once, and prove something by Friday. That impulse is the old inheritance moving one last time, and it will suppress your vagal tone within days, which will dull the exact instrument you just spent this hour bringing online. Restriction taken up as punishment lowers your reading capacity. It always has. Loosen instead. Let the process run. Your threshold is rising on its own schedule, and it does not need to be forced. Something in your field settled during that pass, and you may not feel the full shape of it until tomorrow morning. What changed is not your diet. Nothing about your kitchen is different than it was an hour ago. What changed is the position of the receiver. The gap between signal sent and signal received. The hours-long delay you have lived inside your entire adult life, where your body reported something and you registered it much later as an unexplained mood. That gap has narrowed. It will keep narrowing over the coming days without any effort from you. Expect the next stretch to feel slightly louder than usual. Foods you have eaten without incident may suddenly report. That is not regression. You have already been given the frame for it. Loud readings mean a live instrument. Let them be loud. Note them. Move on. And be gentle with the number you are carrying. Comment it below if you want it read. The Arcturians receive the tally as a field measurement, and 5 or more simply means your recalibration is already running. Seeing the range others are carrying tends to dissolve the private shame faster than anything I could say here. Something else is waiting past this, and it belongs to the next threshold rather than this one. Because the audit you just ran only measures what the body is currently sorting. It does not tell you what happens on the other side when the sorting finishes. There are unmistakable markers that appear in a body after 45, once the Lightbody has completed its transition. Signs that the process concluded rather than stalled. And that is the next transmission in this sequence. Not yet available. Coming. And it follows directly from what opened in you today. But there is something you need before that, and it is already on the screen in front of you. Because the moment the recalibration completes, the body's rhythms change, and almost nobody is prepared for it. Your timing shifts. Hunger arrives at hours that make no sense against the schedule you have kept for decades. Your temperature stops behaving the way it always has, running warm at night, cold in the middle of the afternoon, unpredictable in ways that send people looking for explanations in all the wrong places. The whole internal clock resets around a new frequency, and if you do not know it is coming, you will read it as something going wrong. That is what is waiting on this screen right now. Go there before the next few days pass, because the readings you are about to start receiving will make far more sense once you understand what your body's timing is reorganizing toward. You have the instrument now. This is the manual for what it starts reporting next. The transmission is complete. The audit is closed. Your body has been speaking clearly this entire time. You are simply, finally, in the room.